It started with a blurry photo. Nothing scandalous at first glance, just a group shot from a weekend party. There was a bonfire, red Solo cups, people grinning under string lights, the kind of picture you'd scroll past on Instagram without a second thought. Except my wife was in it. And she wasn't supposed to be. I was 2,000 miles away at the time, attending a 3-day sales conference in Chicago. The kind that starts with name badges and ends with cheap scotch and awkward conversations about quarterly projections. I'd called Anna that night, like always, and she'd told me she was having a quiet evening at home. Maybe takeout, maybe a bath. She hadn't mentioned the party. I found the photo by accident 2 days later, while scrolling through the tagged pictures on her best friend Monica's profile. It popped up between a recipe reel and some gym selfies. I almost didn't notice it. But then I saw Anna, unmistakably her, in that green off-shoulder top I'd bought her for our anniversary, laughing, holding a drink, sitting just a little too close to someone who wasn't me. That was the first click in the domino chain. I'd been married to Anna for 8 years, together for 10. No kids, just 2 high-powered careers and a labradoodle named Max. I travel often for work, so she's used to long stretches alone. We've had our ups and downs, sure, but I always thought we were solid. Turns out I was wrong. The real unraveling began after I got home. She greeted me at the door like nothing was off, kissed me, asked about the conference, suggested we order Thai and watch a documentary like we always did when I got back from a trip. I didn't say anything about the photo. Not yet. Instead, I played the part of the clueless husband for a few days. I watched her closely, picked up on details I'd always missed. The extra texts she suddenly needed to check in the middle of dinner. The new lingerie she said she bought just because. By the end of the week, I couldn't take it anymore. "How was Monica's party?" I asked casually one morning, over coffee. She froze for half a second. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. "What party?" she said. I set my mug down slowly. "The one last weekend. You didn't mention it." Her smile tightened. "Oh, that? It was last minute, just a small thing. Monica invited me because her cousin was in town. I didn't think it was worth mentioning." "You looked like you were having fun," I said. "Saw the picture." She blinked, then covered it with a laugh. "God, you saw that?" "I wasn't even supposed to be in it. Monica tagged everyone without asking." "Who's the guy you were sitting next to?" That's when the second domino fell. She got defensive, said he was just someone from Monica's gym, that she barely knew him, that I was overreacting. It would have worked on me 6 months ago. Not anymore, because by then, I'd already gone through her iPad. She forgot to unlink her Messages app. One night, while she showered, I opened it. And there they were. Not one guy. Not just someone from Monica's gym. 3 different men. Different names. Different cities. And the messages weren't just flirty. They were graphic. Detailed. The kind of thing that makes your stomach drop and your hands go cold. Her words, her photos, her videos. It wasn't just cheating. It was a whole separate life. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark with Max curled at my feet, reading every thread, watching every clip, piecing together the truth one sickening detail at a time. And that's when I found the message that changed everything. A group chat. Anna, Monica. 2 men I'd never heard of. They called it the Circle. There were photos, videos, plans. My wife hadn't just cheated. She was participating in something. I felt like I couldn't breathe. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. I packed a small bag, left a note on the kitchen table, and drove to my brother Ethan's place 2 towns over. Told Anna I needed space, that I was working through some things. She didn't call, not that day, not the next. She was probably too busy deleting the rest of her secrets. But it was too late, because I was already setting the trap. The hotel room felt too clean, too quiet. I stared at the walls as if they might echo back some logic to what I had seen. But logic had left the building the moment my phone screen lit up with that video. For hours I sat frozen, with only the low hum of the air conditioner for company. My thoughts were a carousel of disbelief, fury, and a gut-wrenching grief I hadn't felt since the day my father died. And even then, it didn't feel like this. This wasn't death. This was betrayal from the person who promised to be my peace. I didn't call her that night. I didn't call anyone. I ordered a whiskey, then another, then finally opened the minibar and downed one of those ridiculously overpriced bottles of gin. But I never got drunk, just more alert, more aware. Like my body knew it had to stay sharp for what came next. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Not until I understood the full scope of what I was dealing with. So I extended my work trip, told my team I'd be taking an extra week to shadow a satellite office, a half-truth that bought me time. Then I called a friend of mine, Carl, who worked in digital security, former military, now a cyber investigator for hire. I told him I needed help tracking activity on a shared device. He didn't ask why. 3 hours later, I had remote access to Lisa's phone. Not to interfere, just to observe. And what I found, it wasn't just one night, it wasn't even just that one video. Carl's program pulled message backups. Hundreds of them. I scrolled through months of chat logs with different names saved as emojis, nicknames like Daddy D or Friday Guy. What she said to them made my stomach turn. They weren't just hookups, they were arrangements, rotations. Lisa had a private social media account under a different name. An invite-only page, discreet, explicit, hidden under layers of privacy settings. But with Carl's tools, nothing stayed hidden long. She wasn't just involved in something casual. She was part of a secret circle of people who met up under the pretense of wellness retreats and networking mixers, all orchestrated through private message threads. The hotel suite I saw wasn't some fluke. It was an event, and she was a regular attendee. Here's the real twist. One of the men in those videos, the one who seemed particularly familiar, was my brother-in-law, her sister's husband. And another? A former client of mine, a married man with 2 kids whose daughter I once gave a recommendation letter for college. I had been unknowingly orbiting this disgusting little planet they created, invited to their barbecues, their weddings, watching football with them on Sundays. All the while, I was the fool, the outsider. Still, I didn't explode. I didn't barge in. I didn't scream or out her to her family. Because I wasn't just angry anymore, I was calculating. Lisa had always underestimated me. She mistook my silence for submission, my trust for weakness. But she forgot. I built my career reading people, anticipating their moves before they made them. Negotiating millions in deals because I could keep my cool while others unraveled. So that's what I did. I stayed cool. The first move I made was legal. I called an attorney, not just any attorney, but someone who specialized in infidelity, privacy invasion, and asset protection. Quietly, we began the process of documenting everything. We didn't just want to prove adultery. We wanted to prove recklessness, moral turpitude, and character misconduct that could swing asset division heavily in my favor. Then I started pulling my own finances out of shared accounts, one by one. Lisa didn't notice. She thought I was still 2,000 miles away. She was still attending her yoga intensives and women's empowerment weekends, which, spoiler alert, were anything but empowering for monogamy. But I wasn't the only one who noticed. Carl pinged me one evening, sending a message that simply said, "Check this out." It was a message Lisa had sent to someone named Silas, time-stamped 3 days ago. It read, "He'll be gone till Tuesday. You can use the side entrance again. Same wine as last time, wink." There was a video attachment. I couldn't bring myself to watch it. Not then. Instead, I packed my bag and booked a red-eye. I didn't care about catching them in the act. I wanted to see how deep this betrayal really ran. When I arrived home, it was 3 a.m. The house was dark, except for a flicker of light under the office door. I crept in quietly. Lisa wasn't in bed. She was in the office, on her laptop, face glowing in the soft light of the screen, giggling at something. No doubt another message from one of her midnight soulmates. She didn't hear me at first, but when she finally looked up and saw me standing there, suitcase in hand, her smile collapsed, and so did everything else. The silence in the room after Lisa saw me was louder than any argument we'd ever had. She blinked like she couldn't quite register that I was real, as if I were a ghost in my own home. Michael? She said, her voice cracking slightly, like she was trying to decide whether to act surprised or scared. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I walked past her, into the living room, dropped my suitcase by the door and slowly took off my coat. Calm. Measured. Every movement intentional. She followed. Wait, what are you doing here? I thought your trip wasn't over until Tuesday. I finally looked at her. Really looked. There was this flicker in her eyes, that half-second flash of guilt and calculation fighting for dominance. It's the same look I'd seen in the boardroom when someone realized they were caught but still thought they could talk their way out of it. I didn't give her the chance. Sit down, I said. She hesitated. Now. She sat. I know, I said. About all of it. Her eyes went wide. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't need to lie, Lisa. Not anymore. I know about the events. I know about the videos. I know about Silas. I know about Marcus, your sister's husband. I know about the burner accounts, the fake retreats, the encrypted chats. She looked like the floor had just opened beneath her. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. So I kept going. I've spent the last 2 weeks gathering evidence, quietly, thoroughly. Every message, every receipt, every betrayal. You hacked me? Number, I protected myself. That's what people do when they realize the person sleeping next to them has been lying for years. She covered her mouth with her hand. Whether it was from shame or shock, I couldn't tell. And honestly, I didn't care. I want you to pack a bag and leave tonight. But, Michael, wait. You don't understand. Don't. I raised my hand. Don't insult both of us by pretending this is a misunderstanding. You chose this, repeatedly. You lied. You used me. You disrespected our marriage, our home. And you thought I'd never find out because what? I trusted you too much? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just started as a thrill, a hobby, a way to feel powerful again. I laughed bitterly. Was I boring to you, Lisa? Was loving me too stable for your taste? She shook her head quickly, like she was hoping movement could erase facts. No, Michael, it wasn't about you. It was about me. I felt lost, invisible, like I was disappearing and no one noticed. You were always busy with work, always tired, and She trailed off. And there it was. The justification, the self-victimization, the me of it all. I was tired, I said, because I was building the life we said we wanted, because I thought we were a team. I didn't realize I was working overtime so you could sneak men into our house through the side gate. Her head dropped. I stood, walked to the counter, and pulled out the envelope the attorney had prepped. Quietly, I placed it on the coffee table in front of her. This is a notice of intent to divorce. My lawyer's contact is inside. We can do this fast or we can do it messy. Your choice. She stared at it like it might catch fire. And Lisa? Don't try to guilt me. Don't talk to your sister and beg her to intervene. Don't play the victim. You made your bed. Literally. With multiple people, don't cry because you finally have to lie in it. Her voice was small. What about us? There is no us, I said. Not anymore. She didn't move. Just sat there, stunned, silent, watching the future dissolve around her like sugar in boiling water. And I walked upstairs. Not because I wanted to sleep there, but because I wanted her to feel every second of my footsteps. Wanted her to know that I wasn't just leaving the room. I was leaving her. That night, I slept in the guest room with the door locked just in case. In the morning, she was gone. A few of her things were missing. The laptop, a duffel bag, one of the wine bottles from the kitchen. But she left her phone. Unlocked. On purpose, I think. Maybe she wanted me to read whatever messages she hadn't already deleted. Maybe she wanted to be punished. What I found wasn't what I expected, not more cheating, but messages to herself, notes, little affirmations like some therapist had told her to write things down. One said, "You can't keep both lives. One will destroy the other." Another, "He doesn't see you anymore. That's not the same as love fading, is it?" And the most recent written the night I came home. He's going to leave, and he should. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not exactly. But I felt something. Like pity for a person who self-sabotaged so much that love, real love, wasn't enough to save them from themselves. Still, I closed the phone, placed it on the kitchen table, and walked out the front door with one goal in mind: to reclaim the version of myself that she buried under her secrets. The strange thing about betrayal is how quiet everything becomes after the explosion. No more fights, no more guessing games, just silence, stillness, the absence of what you thought was solid ground. I didn't go back home after that night. Instead, I drove for 2 hours until I ended up at my older brother's cabin outside Asheville. He wasn't there. He was in Italy with his wife on a long-delayed anniversary trip. But he'd given me a spare key years ago, just in case. Funny how just in case finally came. The cabin was rustic, no TV, spotty Wi-Fi, and way too much time to think. Which is exactly what I needed. I spent the first 2 days doing absolutely nothing. I'd wake up on the couch, stare at the wooden ceiling beams, drink black coffee from an old chipped mug, and just breathe. It's amazing how you forget to breathe when you're trying so hard to hold it all together for years. By day 3, the quiet started getting to me. So I opened my laptop and started making a list. Not of what Lisa had done, I already had that, but of everything I'd let slide over the years. The parties I didn't go to because she wasn't feeling social. The family dinners she skipped because she was tired from work. The unexplained receipts, the missing weekends, the overnight conferences that never had hotel records when I checked. This wasn't just a moment of bad judgment. It was a pattern. A slow, calculated detachment she'd been building brick by brick behind a smile and a kiss goodbye. And somewhere along the way, I stopped asking questions because I didn't want to seem controlling. Because I trusted her. Because I believed love meant never having to doubt the person who shares your pillow. That was my mistake. But not anymore. On the 4th day, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Her name was Tasha, my college ex. One of those rare, good breakups that ended because of distance, not drama. She'd seen Lisa's name trending on one of those wives gone wild online forums. Apparently, a clip from one of those events, heavily pixelated but unmistakable, had gone viral in a certain community. It didn't take long for people to connect dots. Lisa's name, her LinkedIn, our address. I wasn't sure whether to be angry or relieved. Tasha's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry you're going through this, Mike. I mean it. You didn't deserve that." I thanked her, awkwardly. Before hanging up, she said something that stuck with me. "You're going to feel like this is the end. But it's not. It's just a really ugly middle." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared up at the wooden ceiling again, thinking about that ugly middle, and I realized she was right. Lisa wasn't my end. She was just my unraveling. But I still had control over what I rebuilt from here. The next morning, I drove back into town, cleaned myself up, bought a cheap notebook and sat down at the same coffee shop where Lisa and I had our first real date 11 years ago. And I started writing. Not to her. Not for revenge, but to myself. Letters from the future me, to the me sitting in that booth with coffee shaking in my hand. Letters that said things like, "You didn't fail. You believed. That's not weakness. She cheated. You healed. That's your legacy. You are not what someone else did to you." And maybe the most important one, you don't need closure from her. You need forgiveness from you. Just as I finished the last sentence, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa's sister, Danielle. She and I had never been close. But what she sent me made my hands go numb. It was a photo, a screenshot, of Lisa and 2 other men. Not Silas, not Marcus. 2 more. Names I didn't recognize. Faces blurred out. But the timestamp was only a few days before I came home. Danielle wrote, "I didn't know what was going on. I just found this on her shared iCloud. I'm sorry, Mike. If you need anything, I'm here." I stared at the screen, not because I was surprised, but because even after everything, there were still more dominoes falling. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. Lisa was living a second life, one I was never meant to discover, but I had. And now? I wasn't just going to walk away, I was going to expose everything. There's a moment, a strange, almost out-of-body moment, where heartbreak transforms into clarity. It's not loud. It doesn't come with shouting or tears, it just arrives. Quiet, cold, steady, like a tide rolling in after a long storm. That's how it felt sitting in my car outside Lisa's office building the next day. I wasn't there to confront her. Not yet. I just wanted to see the place for what it really was. The stage where so many of her lies had played out. It was just a building, but in my mind, it had morphed into something darker, something rotten. Silas worked there too. Of course he did. For 15 years, I thought I knew my wife. Thought I knew her daily routines, her quirks, the way her eyes sparkled when she was lying. I just never realized that sparkle wasn't for me. I pulled out my phone. Opened the message from Danielle again. I'd looked at the photo so many times I could probably recreate every pixel from memory. The timestamp was 2 days before I walked in on her, before the business trip she swore she needed for mental clarity. And now I had confirmation she'd been involved with at least 2 more men. That wasn't a mistake. That was a lifestyle. So I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I booked an appointment with a private investigator. His name was Aaron, ex-cop, quiet, methodical, zero drama. He listened to everything without blinking. I gave him names, places, screenshots, access to shared accounts. I even told him about Lisa's friends' retreats and the odd purchases she'd made over the last 6 months, expensive wine she didn't drink, hotel bookings under fake names, gym memberships for studios she never visited. Aaron didn't flinch, just wrote everything down and nodded slowly. "This might go deeper than you think," he said. "Are you ready for what we might find?" I said yes. What I meant was, I'm done being the last to know. While Aaron started digging, I returned to the cabin. It had become my sanctuary, a place where my broken pieces could just exist without having to perform okay for anyone else. That's when the phone calls started again. Lisa. She'd called 12 times in 2 days. No voicemails, just missed calls. Until finally, on the 13th attempt, she left a message. Her voice was trembling, controlled, but forced. "Hey, I know I've hurt you. I know you saw more than I ever wanted you to, and you probably hate me right now. But Mike, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just felt invisible for a long time. And Silas, he paid attention. He made me feel alive again. But it was a mistake. I swear to God, Mike, I didn't plan this. I still love you. I want to fix this. We can go to therapy. We can talk. Just, please don't shut me out, please." She sounded like she believed herself. That was the most dangerous part. Not once did she apologize for what she did, only for how I felt about it. And now she wanted to rewrite the narrative, turn it into a story of disconnection, miscommunication, a marriage that just drifted. But I knew better. This wasn't about drifting. This was a mutiny. And then came the second voicemail, from Silas. Yeah, he called me. His voice? Confident. Too confident. "Mike, look, man, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Lisa and I, it happened. You already know that. But don't act like you didn't see the signs. She was miserable, man. Checked out. Hell, half the time you didn't even look at her. What did you expect to happen? I didn't mean for it to go down this way, but I'm not apologizing for falling in love." Falling in love. That phrase hit harder than any confession, because that meant it wasn't just a fling. It wasn't one drunken mistake. He thought this was a love story. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because 3 days later, Aaron called. "Got something," he said. He wasn't kidding. Turns out Lisa wasn't just cheating on me with Silas and those other men. She'd been filming some of it, selling it, through an anonymous page. A username tied to a burner phone, but payments eventually routed to a secondary PayPal account linked to her maiden name. That was the moment something inside me stopped breaking. Because now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about fraud. Lisa hadn't just destroyed our marriage. She'd turned our life, our house, our shared bed, into a business transaction. And that was unforgivable. The next time Lisa called, I answered. Not because I wanted to talk, not because I missed her voice, but because I needed her to know. The pretending was over. I kept my tone calm, colder than she was used to. We need to talk, face to face. She hesitated. Are you okay? I didn't answer that. Instead, I gave her a time, a public cafe near downtown, and said, "Don't be late." She wasn't. She showed up looking like she'd aged 10 years in a week. No makeup, dark circles, hair tied back like she couldn't be bothered. For a second, I saw the woman I married. Or maybe just the version of her I'd wanted to believe in. But that version was dead. Had been for a while. "I've missed you," she said the moment she sat down. I ignored it. "You need to tell me everything, Lisa," I said, flat. "And you need to do it now, because I already know more than you think." She blinked. What do you mean?" I slid my phone across the table, opened the folder labeled Red Flags, Screenshots, Payment Receipts, Metadata, Timestamps, and then a paused video. She didn't even try to deny it, just stared at the screen, her lips parted like she forgot how to breathe. "I didn't mean for that to happen," she whispered. "That's starting to sound like your favorite line," I said. "But this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was business. You turned our life into content. You filmed men in our house, Lisa, our bedroom. Did any of them even know they were being recorded?" Her silence was louder than any answer. I leaned back. "Do you even realize the legal mess you're in? If even one of those videos was without consent." "I had consent," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "It was anonymous. No faces." That didn't make it better. I saw her face start to crumble. But for once, I didn't soften. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said. "You exploited what we built. You used our mortgage, our mattress, our electricity. For this." "I didn't do it for the money," she said, choking up. "No," I said. "You did it for attention." She looked up. That hit. Hard. The woman who used to blush when I said she was beautiful had chosen validation from strangers over connection at home. And the worst part? She'd taught herself to justify it. To believe that somehow I was the villain for not seeing her anymore. "I'm filing," I said plainly. "Divorce papers. End of this week." She opened her mouth, but I stopped her. "I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it to survive. There's no rebuilding from this. You didn't just break trust. You shattered identity. I don't even know who you are anymore." She tried to grab my hand. I pulled back. As I stood up, I left one envelope on the table. Not papers, not threats, just a printed copy of her own PayPal records. A reminder. "I don't need revenge, Lisa," I said. "You're doing that part yourself." I walked away. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. But it wasn't from sadness. It was relief. Real, tangible freedom. That night, back at my brother's place, I sat alone on the porch with a cup of tea and my laptop. I didn't open emails, didn't scroll social media. I opened a blank document, titled it, "What Comes Next?" and just stared at the blinking cursor. For once, silence felt comforting. Lisa didn't contact me the next day, but someone else did. It was an email, short and to the point. The sender? An anonymous burner address. Subject line: "You should know who else she invited over." Attached were screenshots, phone logs, GPS data. A message from Lisa to someone labeled only as Jay. "He's out of town again. Friday works. Same wine as last time?" That was 3 months before I found the first messages. My stomach sank. Because Jay wasn't just some random guy. Jay was Jonah, one of my old friends from college. A guy who'd been at our wedding. A guy who'd stayed in our guest room when he visited last Thanksgiving. My hands clenched the table so hard my knuckles cracked. I called him. No answer. Second call. Voicemail. Third time he picked up. The first thing he said wasn't hello, it was, "Who told you?" That was all I needed. "I trusted you," I said, voice shaking. "You sat across the table from me. You watched me thank my wife for being loyal while you were sneaking into my home like a damn parasite. Listen. No, you listen. You're not just a liar. You're a coward. And if I see you anywhere near me or my property again, I'll handle it legally." I hung up. And for the first time in weeks, I screamed. Not out of pain, but from the sheer volume of betrayal. Every time I thought I'd hit the bottom, someone moved the floor lower. Lisa didn't just cheat. She recruited people from our circle. What kind of person does that? My brother found me later, pacing the yard, fists clenched. "You need to stop talking to these people," he said. "Block them. Move on." "I will," I said. "But not until I know every name, every lie. Every time she smiled at me with a secret in her pocket." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about clarity. About pulling the last nail from a coffin I didn't even know had been built around me. That night, I filed an official request through my lawyer, a forensic audit of our finances, phone records, and shared cloud backups. I wasn't playing detective out of curiosity anymore. I needed the full picture. What we found shocked even her attorney. There were 4 men. 2 had paid her, not directly, but through digital consulting services she registered under a fake LLC. Another was someone from her gym. The last question mark? An old client of mine. Lisa had built an ecosystem of betrayal. And the worst part? My daughters knew about at least one of them. I hadn't spoken to them in weeks. But now I had to. I hadn't spoken to my daughters in nearly 3 weeks. Every day, I stared at my phone, thought about what to say, thought about how to start a conversation that felt impossible. How do you look your children in the eye and ask, "How long did you protect your mother's lie?" But after the audit, after seeing the name of the man she met at my youngest college orientation and realizing he'd visited our home under the guise of helping her with career coaching, I knew I had to. So I texted them both. Just 3 words. "We need to talk." To my surprise, they agreed to meet the next morning. Neutral Ground, a local cafe near their campus. I got there early, sat at a table by the window, stirred my coffee until it went cold. Then they walked in. Emma and Claire. My girls. Emma wore her usual hoodie, hands stuffed into her sleeves like she used to do when she was 5. Claire, always the confident one, held herself like she was bracing for impact. We sat. Nobody spoke for a full minute. Then I started. "I'm not here to yell, I'm not here to guilt trip you, but I need to know the truth." Claire looked down. Emma picked at the edge of her cup's sleeve. "Did you know?" I asked. "About your mom? About the others? About Jonah?" Claire blinked. "We didn't know about all of them." "But you knew something," I said. Emma nodded. "We knew about the guy from the gym. We thought it was just that. One time. We didn't know she—" Her voice cracked. "We didn't know she kept doing it." Claire leaned forward. "She told us not to worry you. Said you'd overreact. That you'd leave. And we didn't want to lose you." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "Do you understand how that feels?" I said, quieter now. "To walk into your own life and realize you're the only one who wasn't in on the secret?" They both looked like they might cry. Claire reached across the table. "Dad, we're sorry. Really. We thought we were helping." "By lying?" I said. "Not cruelly, just truthfully." Emma whispered. "We didn't know how to handle it." I nodded slowly, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel anger. I felt grief. Because these weren't 2 traitors sitting across from me. They were scared, confused kids who got dragged into a mess they never should have had to navigate. "I still love you," I said. "Nothing changes that. But it's going to take time. I need to heal." Claire wiped her eyes. "We'll wait. However long it takes. Just please don't disappear again." I promised I wouldn't. We hugged before parting ways. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And right now, that was enough. That afternoon, I packed up the last of my things from my brother's place. He offered to let me stay longer, but I told him the truth. I need space to rebuild. Not just my life, but myself. I rented a short-term apartment. Small, quiet, empty. But for the first time in months, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt hopeful. Lisa's lawyer called. She wanted to discuss terms. I told mine, we'll discuss on my terms. Because I wasn't the broken man she thought I'd become, and she was about to find that out. The mediation room was quiet. Too quiet. Across the table sat Lisa, the woman I'd once thought I'd grow old with. Her lawyer on her right, dressed like he was auditioning for a courtroom drama. Mine, calm and sharp, flipped through our carefully organized files. Lisa wouldn't look at me. She fiddled with the edge of her blouse, tapping her fingers against her water bottle like she wished time would speed up. Her lawyer spoke first. We're prepared to offer an amicable split. Lisa will retain the house. You'll keep your retirement fund, your business shares, and the secondary vehicle. We understand the nature of your separation was emotionally difficult, and we'd like to avoid any unnecessary escalation. I didn't respond right away, because I knew what that offer really was. A cover-up. A way for her to walk away without the full truth seeing daylight. My lawyer slid the folder across the table. Inside, everything. Screenshots, names, flight bookings. Her expense reports showing weekends she claimed were women's retreats, but were actually booked at adult resorts under his name. The gym owner, the yoga instructor, the orientation speaker, Jonah. Even the housekeeper, a man I paid weekly, who had stayed late to help her with the laundry. And then came the email. The one she sent Jonah 3 weeks before I discovered the truth. The one where she joked, he's getting older. Slower. Doesn't even notice when I come home late. I could tell him I joined a cult and he'd probably offer to drive me to the meetings. I watched her face as she read it again. This time, surrounded by lawyers, without the safety of distance or denial. Your client, my lawyer said evenly, has not only violated the trust in a 22-year marriage, but knowingly involved your children in deception, mishandled shared finances, and emotionally manipulated my client for months. Lisa still wouldn't look at me. The silence stretched. I'm not here to destroy you, I said finally. I'm here because you tried to erase me. You wanted to rewrite the story like I was the afterthought. You used our daughters, our money, our home, and gave them away like they were disposable. But I am not disposable. Her lawyer leaned forward. What is it you want? I looked straight at Lisa for the first time. I want the house. I want joint custody, not just of our daughters, but of the truth. I want acknowledgement. I want her to admit what she did. And I want her to stop pretending I imagined it all. Lisa opened her mouth, but her lawyer raised a hand, cautioning her. And for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, not sadness, just fear. Because she realized this wasn't the man she walked all over for years. This wasn't the husband who let things go to keep the peace. This was the version of me she created by tearing down the old one. I stood. I'm done talking today. When you're ready to stop lying to yourself, let me know. And I left. Outside, the air was sharp with early spring wind. I should have felt exhausted, but instead, I felt clean. That night, I cooked dinner in my little apartment. Not much, just pasta, garlic bread, and a glass of wine. Set it down on a table I assembled myself. I turned my phone face down. I didn't need updates from lawyers. I didn't need texts from people trying to make me see both sides. I just needed that one moment, one plate, one meal, one new beginning. I'd lost my marriage, my home, my illusions. But somewhere in all of that rubble, I was finding myself again. It was late Sunday morning when I got the call. Blocked number. I almost didn't pick up. But something in my gut said, answer it. It was Jonah. Not the groveling kind of call I expected. Not even a confrontational one. His voice was calm. Too calm. Like a man who finally realized the sandcastle he built was crumbling under the tide. I didn't know she was still married, he started. I let the silence hang. Look, man, I know you hate me. You probably should. But I thought you should know. She's been doing this a long time. I wasn't the first. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? I asked slowly. She told me she had an open marriage, said you were cool with it, said she only stayed with you for the house and the stability, that you knew about everything. I could feel my pulse rising, my fingers tightening around the phone. He kept talking. And then, I started hearing from other guys, trainers, members at the wellness retreat, even one of her old college friends. I think she has a pattern, man. I think she gets bored and makes people her projects. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. She hadn't just cheated. She'd built an entire narrative where I was the irrelevant side character in my own life. I didn't thank him, didn't curse him either. Just ended the call and sat there for a while. Because for the first time I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry, I was done. That afternoon I went for a walk. The air had that early summer scent, cut grass, blooming trees, children playing in backyards. It reminded me of all the small joys I had ignored trying to hold together a broken home. Halfway through the park trail, I saw my daughter, Mariah. She was sitting on a bench alone, knees pulled up, earbuds in. When she saw me, her face went pale. She stood, unsure if she should run or apologize. I walked up to her and said, "Hi." Just that. She nodded, eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I sat down beside her. "You were put in a terrible position," I said. "And I wish you'd told me, but I also know you're still young." And I wasn't easy to talk to toward the end. We didn't say much after that, just sat, watching the trees sway in the wind. But when she leaned her head on my shoulder, the same way she used to as a kid when thunderstorms scared her, I knew something had shifted. That night, I slept well for the first time in months. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. I got the house. Not because I fought dirty, just because the truth has weight when you carry it, right? Lisa moved into a rental on the other side of town. Word got out, as it always does in places like ours. The yoga studio dropped her from their promotional material. The wellness retreat replaced her with someone else. She tried to reach out a few times, once with a long email titled, "When you're ready to forgive." I never opened it. Because forgiveness isn't a gift you owe to someone just because they finally feel the consequences of their actions. Forgiveness is something you earn when you start telling the truth and live with the silence that comes after. 6 months later, my brother convinced me to go on a hiking trip with him and his neighbor Claire. Claire is funny, smart, the kind of woman who doesn't try to be anything but herself. She talks about books she actually reads, laughs at her own jokes, makes a mean grilled cheese. I'm not saying I'm falling in love, but I don't flinch when I think about the possibility anymore. Last week I found a note tucked into a book I was reading. From Mariah. It read, "Dad, I see you now. I see how strong you are. I'm sorry it took me so long. I love you." I folded the note and placed it in the top drawer of my nightstand. It's not revenge. It's not closure. It's something better. It's proof that the truth, no matter how messy, always has the final word. And sometimes, the most beautiful part of your story begins after you think it's over.